Okay, we are being live streamed.
There you are. Okay. So it is streaming. Rupert, I'll make you
Okay.
host now.
Got it.
I'll send you my contact in chat just in case, text, call, whatever.
Got it.
And I think we'll be good to go.
All right.
I'm just streaming to YouTube. I didn't do Facebook. YouTube's the best archiver, so
Yep.
we'll be good there. Okay. Hello, Joe. Chiller. That's not your last name.
Let me fix that.
I'm not criticizing you.
No, it's I must have used that to hide my name from somebody at one point.
Chili Vince. That's cool. All right. I got to drop. Rupert's standing in, and thank you very, very much for doing that, Rupert.
Sure, no problem.
I'll love to look back and see what y'all talked about, see what I can learn.
Yeah, we'll see what we can do.
Video. Let's see. You can send 1080, right? Let me see if I can
Yes.
get 1080 out of you. You are full screen. Yep, and it just popped to 1080. So we're good to go. Very cool.
All right. All right. Well,
Yeah,
thanks, Jeff.
Have fun. Thank you. And I'll leave the browser, the stream window open for now, but we'll be good to go. All right. Take care, guys.
All
Have
right.
a great weekend.
Thanks, Jeff. So, hey, Joe. Welcome along. I'm not sure if we've met before. I don't recall. But I'm Rupert. I'm going to stand in for Jeff.
Oh,
here.
yeah, I've seen you. I've seen
Yeah.
you on here. We might not have had a personal conversation,
Right.
but yeah, I've been on at the same time you've been on, watching things.
Yeah. So, and I see Jeremy's in here as well with the camera off. That's fine for anybody who wants to watch along now or later. So, I've got some things we can talk about here in the test kitchen in terms of new features that maybe have come out recently, or I think there's a release coming out here on Monday also coming up. But Joe, have you got anything that you want to tackle right out of the gate?
I don't. I normally just come in and see what you guys are talking about. If I have something specific, I'll bring it up. But today I don't.
Sure. Well, I can talk about one thing I tested out just recently in terms of Zoom, actually with Zoom Rooms. I have a Zoom Room, Zoom Rooms loaded onto a laptop, which I kind of take around and do different testing with. And there was a new feature in Zoom Rooms recently that allows you to bring in multiple cameras from a single machine, and they'll all appear separately in a gallery view. I'm not set up to do it right now, but I was testing it the other day. I had 3 cameras attached to a single laptop running Zoom Rooms.
Okay.
And was able to go into the settings for that and specify each of the cameras. So the way it works is you have your main normal camera, and you can specify 2 additional cameras, up to 2 additional cameras. And it pretty much did what it said on the box. I was looking at the meeting, had other machines logged into the meeting and looking at gallery view.
So, for example, if I was in a Zoom room and I had 3 cameras, there'd be 3 separate views of me, and they'd be manipulated just like any other view of somebody. It's three separate persons.
Exactly, yeah. So to anybody else, it appears, if you're looking in gallery view, for example, it appears as 3 cameras in gallery view, or 3 participants, although they each have the same name, with like 1, 2, and 3, in parentheses at the end of the name.
Okay.
And when the only it's only the primary video that appears to have audio. You know, that's
Okay.
where the audio is coming from. And
Okay.
I was in a meeting that would otherwise have been doing HD at 1080, and I didn't find that. And this may just have been a resource issue on it because it was on the laptop. And I'm just not sure that it can provide 3 simultaneous feeds at 1080, because I think it's assuming that
Okay.
only one will be sort of the active speaker at any one
Huh.
time. It can do some other things with trying to like auto frame people up, you know. So it was my test was more of a proof of concept, although it's an official feature
Right.
released. So
Yeah.
maybe
So you didn't put it through its paces entirely. You just kind of checking it
right.
out.
Yeah, I got I wanted to get the behavior understood in terms of what other people saw, you know, how those feeds were presented, particularly in gallery view.
Mhm.
And so certainly worth some more testing. Hey George, welcome. You're muted, I think.
Yes,
There we
you're
go.
right. I was testing different microphones today. I finally found, I think I found something that works fairly well. I can't tell because I'm not on that end. So
Yeah, we can hear you. I think I think Joe may be coming in a little hotter, and you may be a little lower, but
I can get,
I
I
don't
can
have
move this up a little bit. I got a
meters.
bit of space here,
There you
if
go.
that helps at all.
Yeah, sounds good. So this is it first time in the Zoom in this meeting?
I think so.
Okay. So
Hi,
Joe,
Joe.
yeah, George, I've brought George into the community a little bit, so we know each other, and I think this is, like you say, first time joining in. So
On
welcome.
Fridays, yes. Yeah, thank you.
So I'm standing in for Jeff Wickering, who would normally host. I mean, this is his environment, so I'm just I think this is the second time I've covered for him, so we're just going to run with the conversation. We'll go over any testing we want to do and talk about some new features. Have you got anything, George, you want to cover?
Well, I've been playing around with Keynote and the new Keynote features, and there's 2 that have been kind of interesting. One is the live video insert. So instead of it, I think it has the potential to make presentations much more organic because you're part of them rather than you're here and it's over there as a separate thing, right? And because you got to keep giving cues about, well, you know, the big cue is, where am I supposed to look? Do I look at you? Do I look over there? Is it up there? You know, a little tiny pointer doesn't help. Or, you know, when people do them on screen, one thing I see is probably the most common mistake is a little tiny cursor that moves so fast. The user knows where it's going next, but I don't. I am not Wayne Gretzky. You know, you really have to tell me. So I was just showing my son one. I can flip it up. It's like 1.5 minutes. If you want to see what, it doesn't all work, but it's not too far off.
Sure.
Okay.
Have you got is that something you're going to send in through your video? You want to screen share?
I need to screen share. I think I haven't figured out a way to do it other than screen sharing. I
Okay.
tried to do it through, well, you know, there's a slide share in the advanced option in Zoom. But if you try to do that with Zoom, all you get are the flat slides, no
Right.
transitions, no
Right.
nothing, right?
Okay. So you should be able to screen share now.
Okay. Okay, let me get Keynote up here. Oops. I just closed Keynote, of course, before I jumped in here. And just give me past the junk. So, and a lot of this is, as I said, start live video, yes, play slideshow. Okay, so screen share coming now. So, and all parts of me are going to be done live here. And so this is me introducing myself and the company. And what I'm going to talk about is the rule of thirds and how you can use the rule of thirds to make your video presentation a little bit better. So what's the rule of thirds? We divide an image into thirds, horizontally and vertically. Today, we're going to talk about horizontal. So the upper line in the rule of thirds gives us the upper third, and that also gives us a clue of where our eyes should be. So why would that be the case? Probably a million years of human evolution. When you talk to somebody face to face, eyes to eyes, this is what you tend to see. The middle third for this purpose today is just going to be between the upper and the lower. The lower is a no-go area for you and your face. Stay out of it. Why? It's going to be used for things like supers that tell you who's talking and why you should care. And it's also can be used to tell you what show you're watching and what channel is on. Go away. See, timing is bad. And of course, everybody's seen this kind of busy lower third. That was me. And so that's the end of it. Rule of thirds scrolls out and it is done.
That was good.
Yeah, fast, furious, and some things don't work. Getting the audio in sync has been tricky. Sometimes it's working, sometimes it isn't. I don't know why. So, but I think, is it immersive? Does it make more sense to have a single image if it's important to see the person speaking? And sometimes it is.
Yeah, so I think that audio sync is a side effect of in that scenario, your audio is still coming in through your microphone pipeline through Zoom, right? Because it's still live audio.
Yeah, I've got the audio coming in through, I've got a mixer and then just a little mixing box. And the only thing it really does is convert XLR to
Right.
a signal I can get into the back of my Mac through a USB-C. So that's all it does.
Yeah, and it may be getting processed separately because it's coming in via a screen share, you know?
That could be.
Yeah.
Was it in sync this time?
I didn't. I was paying close attention to all your animations, so but I didn't notice a huge problem.
Yeah.
But it's
I noticed it last night when I recorded two different ways locally. So I did just the Apple screen record, and then I also did it. You can do a record to QuickTime, to the QuickTime player. I did both of those. The only one that didn't work very well was QuickTime. And that was stuttering in the whole thing after about a minute and a half. The audio froze, the video froze. It did a couple of jumps and then it started up again. And I did two and it broke both in different places, but the direct recording from the Mac, screen record function worked fairly well. So.
And that's all on one machine, right?
Yeah, that was all done on one machine, and I didn't bother to shut everything else off because I was just, playing away. I still could use a reboot and bring it up without anything else running on it. Yeah, but all on one machine. I can move some of it to another machine easily enough.
Yeah, if I were trying to build a workflow around it, I'd be tempted to probably do it that way. Have one machine handling the ingest and the presentation, and then another machine taking that in and pushing it into Zoom or capturing it or doing whatever you want with the output.
Yeah, I think I might need a mini sometimes.
It doesn't stop there.
I know, This has been an expensive couple of weeks, Rupert.
Right. But it's it's a good demo, and actually a good subject matter that you used in your demo, because I think this whole presentation, the tools that get used for presenting material, and even what you've talked about there in terms of eye contact and layout and alignment and all that stuff. I think it's a big that's just a topic that's going to get more and more attention, I think.
Yeah, I think so. I wanted something that was easy to show clients as well. I've done other things, but that I think is just easier because you've got somebody there actually moving their camera around.
Right.
And I can stop in the middle of it and say, does anybody have any questions? And then go on.
Right.
Yeah. So I can see one of the problems, and maybe I haven't loaded Companion yet, but one of the problems is I can't program the Stream Deck to go page to page to page. In other words, go to page 33, now go back to page 12. I might be able to do it with a second screen controller on a second box, because it'd be nice to have all of my slides on a 32 and be able to just punch up a slide, right? And then pop into it or not.
Yeah. It seems like somebody out there will have figured that out, I'm sure that solution is out there. Yeah, but in terms of the subject matter that you're just working on there, like lining people up, is that something that you are finding people are receptive to, like in Zoom, for example?
Some are. Some people can't tell the difference between white and black.
Right.
It's just there's no amount of talking and showing. And the problem is I used to have control of the camera. So that's one of the things that has attracted me to this whole project so much, to be able to take control of somebody's camera who's presenting, and I just want to produce them, right? Well, when I was shooting, when I was in the room or I was controlling the shooters, well, that was easy. We just zoomed the way we wanted. We framed them up and they didn't have any choice, right? But now that they have all these choices, they don't know how to deal with them. And a lot of them simply can't see it.
And is this, is the majority of cases you're working with people using the equipment that they have, or do you ever have the opportunity to get them better stuff or encourage them to get something different or send them anything?
Oh yeah, the encouragement has been strong. It should be better this year, but part of the issue was that, especially in 2020, I was running into people with 7-year-old laptops. Well, you can imagine what the cameras were like.
Right.
And they were on, these are typically older board members. And they didn't see any real reason to upgrade anything. They did FaceTime with the grandkids on the phone or on an iPad, I have an iPad mini. I love it. It's a terrible device to be doing Zoom on. So they were able to get emails from the kids, and that was there's always 2 or 3 of those, and they tend to be the chair of the finance committee or something. So they've got to be presenting at some point. So yeah, we sent cameras out. That didn't always work. The last year I sent a cameraman, and we did them one at a time in their boardroom, and he just swung them around. We did 3 of those inside of a week. That seemed to work quite well. So that to me was the hybrid event. Send a good shooter in, get some lights, keep people at a distance, mic them up properly. They make the presentations, and then we run them as pre-records.
And what about, if that's an event or a recording with several speakers and maybe some look better than others, is that something they can see after the fact? Maybe when they watch the show, do you find those people notice that that maybe there were other people that looked better than they did, or more? Is it something they can appreciate after the fact?
Some get it, some don't.
Right.
Some see it, and the tricky bit is it's hoping that the client, that whoever is making the decisions or influencing the decision maker the most in the client base can see the difference between what looks decent and what looks awful.
Right.
It's just, I think that's why we do what we do and why we get paid to do what we do, because we can tell the difference. And right.
So I know that I see this, subject coming up more and more, I think, as just time goes on. And I know it's something that Zoom try to encourage, do what they can to encourage people. Certainly from there, I believe internally, I think they have, people come in and try and train or orientate people on, best practice for framing up and stuff like that. And
Sure.
I just saw the other day, they released a blog article on, I think that was more about animation and presentation techniques, but it's at least something I think they're trying to, get the word out there on for users and customers and stuff like that.
Yeah.
We've been using a lot of this thing recently, where we send, if you grab yourself there, and you're muted.
Yeah, I'm typically in the spot. I did build with the slideshow that we walked through. I built a circle in there, but I dropped that one because it just interrupted the flow. I
Yeah.
thought anyway. So I'm trying to keep these attention span being what it is. And I spent a bunch of years as a reporter in radio and television. And if you could get a minute 30 to, tell people what went on and whatever, and made sense out of it and showed them pictures too. And like, that was the world I lived in. So keep it really short, one little thing at a time.
Yeah.
I think it works for that. I hope. And I'm starting to work with, I call them terrified trainers, people who have kind of gray hair, who are used to the classroom and got stuck into this because the schools that they teach for, this is like the business development and business writing and all that kind of stuff, and policies, and none of them are real faculty. They're all part-timers, and they've all had to work from home. They think that a virtual background is phenomenal if they can only figure out how to use it.
Right.
So there's a lot of that, and they feel really disconnected from their students. And I don't think anybody's taken the trouble to train them in how to communicate. I mean, all you have to do is watch Office Hours for like the first 20 minutes and you get it. There's communication right in your face. It works.
Yeah, I actually made a connection last week with a research doctor who's done some research on like cognitive load of all this electronic communication and all the different stimuli that we have to do with instant messaging and all this stuff, everything. And I'm just seeing where that conversation goes, because maybe some interesting things there. I think you're right. I think a lot of problems people have with it are through the poor quality rather than the medium. That's maybe the challenge that a lot of people are having. But I just want to say welcome here to some other folks. I see Ray's joined us, and Lewis and Henry. Welcome. We're just
Hey,
chatting.
Rupert.
We're just chatting away here. Hey,
Sorry I'm late.
no problem.
Sometimes clients control our schedule.
That's what can happen.
Sometimes we're just working on something and just don't notice the time.
So, Lois, have you got anything you need help with right out of the gate before we run
Well-
away with anything else?
I am still I'm frustrated, is what I am. I'm trying to do a recording. I'm recording on my own computer, so I don't have to worry about the cloud stuff. But I am unable to get a recording that shows what I see on the screen. And I'm the host and I want my view to be recorded. If I switch to gallery, I want it to follow me. If I switch to pinning someone or spotlighting, I want it to follow me. I can't get it. I can get it recorded completely one way or the other way, but I can't get it so that it is recording what I'm seeing. Anybody actually been able to do that without any extra mixers, just Zoom?
In Zoom local recording when you are host.
Mm-hmm. Or when I'm not host either. I mean, that doesn't make any difference.
Okay.
One of the things that I do, Lois, is I have another machine running as an audience member, and I record that. It's kind of a roundabout way, but it's been working.
Well, but what you record, is it what you're seeing, or is it always gallery or always speaker?
No, it's what I push to that other machine. All it is a monitor. It doesn't do anything. It doesn't take part in anything. It just sits there and it shows me what an audience or a participant in a webinar or the audience in a meeting. And you can pin it locally. I mean, you can do stuff locally. Webinars is much easier to do, frankly, than meetings.
I think I'm not asking my question clearly enough. I'm using Zoom. I have one machine. I have one screen. I haven't got any of that other bells and whistles and, none of that stuff.
Lois,
I just want to record what I see.
Lois, are you in meeting or are you in a
Meeting.
webinar? You're in
Meetings.
meeting. Okay.
Yep. And I could be the host or I could be a participant with permission to record, either way.
And are you switching between gallery view and
On my machine, yes, I see what I want to see. I see you this way, I see you that way. But the recording doesn't follow what my switching does.
what does the recording? Does it do?
I've got one that it's always speaker view and one that it's always gallery view. I haven't
Lois,
got one that moves.
Lois,
Yeah.
Lois, this is Joe.
Hey,
This is Joe. I have a potential solution. I'd be willing to test it out with you. But I would say using the NDI, all you need to do is load the NDI stuff on your computer and then use the NDI monitor and record there. There's potential that'll work. I'm pretty certain it will without testing, but testing it would be a better choice, I would say.
NDI is something else. I don't know. I don't know what NDI is.
NDI, I couldn't tell you what the letters mean. Network, whatever the letters mean, it doesn't matter. It captures and pushes video through your network. Now, it doesn't have to be through your network. It can be locally on your machine as well. So you have one machine, you load NDI tools, you have NDI tools capture your screen and record it. That I am almost certain will work, and I'd love to test it out with you if you want to do that.
Does that give you audio as well as video? Because I have a video capture, but there's no sound. I have an audio capture, but there's no video. And I should be able to just make a recording, darn it.
Yeah. So it'll capture the audio. We just have to make sure we configure it properly to make sure you're not capturing the wrong things.
But there's probably is like a dozen different ways to achieve it. But the answer to the question would be interesting to find. What Lois is actually wanted to do.
Henry, I see you're wanting to jump in here.
A question. Can you hear me okay? I didn't check my audio.
Yeah, it's fine.
Hi. Are you on Windows?
No, Mac.
Oh, sorry. Never mind.
Always Mac all the way. I mean, I have resorted to setting up my iPhone on a little stand here and taking a picture. Taking a video of the screen, and that's ridiculous. I should be able just to record in Zoom on my computer and have something decent.
I would suggest maybe, I know on Windows, if you hit like Windows G, it just records your screen.
Mhm.
And I think you can route whatever audio you want to it. There's got to be something like that on the Mac. And then it's basically just, there's got to be an app or something because people are like recording their demos, see editors or YouTubers just
You
recording
can-
their screens. There's got to be an app for that.
Are,
You can
are
do
you
that
all
in
saying that
QuickTime.
it's impossible to do in Zoom? That's what I'm hearing. Hey, George?
You can actually do that. You're right, Henry. There is something in the Mac and it's Command Shift 5. And if you do that, Lois, you'll get a bunch of options in a little bar at the bottom of the screen.
Uh-huh.
Okay. And so you can see you can do, if you go from left to right,
Mhm. Yeah, I got him.
let me bring them up as well.
Record entire screen, record selected portion. Okay.
Yeah. And you can, so it's, you can capture the selected window, capture the selected portion. You've got the 2 video recording options. The one you want to really look at is the options pop-up. And that controls, first of all, where you're saving to. So you can save it to the desktop, documents, whatever. You can also save it to QuickTime Player. So it jumps into QuickTime Player. I was doing some testing last night, and I mentioned this earlier on in this session, that I was having some problems with it jittering when I was recording live video using QuickTime Player. So I'm just recording to a file. That seemed to be a little more reliable, and it could have been because I had too much stuff running on my machine. The timer will determine whether when you hit the record button, it starts instantly, or whether you have 5 seconds or 10 seconds. Those are your 2 options.
Mhm.
And you should have the options of whatever microphones you have plugged in for the audio source. So you have to make sure you've got the right audio source, that it's actually working. And you might have to test this a little bit. And then basically, once you've set that up, you hit record.
Mhm.
And you can either do a partial screen or you can do the
Right.
whole thing. The whole thing, you're going to get the recording of everything on your screen with Zoom, and if you're popping up windows and stuff like that. That is
How do
pretty
you
reliable.
how do you end it when you've started a recording?
Okay, so if you're doing full screen, you can't see the stop record button.
Mhm.
So what you have to do is Command Shift 5, and then the stop record button will appear in the apps bar right up at the top of your screen, where the time is and all that stuff.
Yeah, it's a little control at the bottom when I did that. So I must not have been full screen. Okay, there
Yeah.
we go. I will,
If you're not full
I'll
screen,
bail
hit
on
the
this
stop.
meeting and come check that out, and I'll be right back. Thank you.
It's interesting though. I wonder whether Zoom decides in what view to record based on what view you were in when you started the recording, whether it be gallery view or active speaker, and whether once that recording started locally, whether it doesn't change the recording when you switch views yourself.
I
So
know.
so it locks into whatever you start on?
I'm just guessing. I don't.
Oh, okay.
I'm wondering if it's not. We can't test it here because you can't have a local recording at the same time as having cloud recording. And we're cloud recording already.
Actually, you can if you start the local recording first.
Okay.
So if anyone who wants a local recording starts it, then somebody starts the
Really?
cloud recording, you're good. But that would mess up your streaming,
Right.
YouTube. Yeah.
But what I was wondering whether the view for a Zoom local record is defined by the view that you had, whether it be gallery or active speaker view when you start the recording.
I don't know, because it's never changed. It's always been one way or the other way.
And could that have been the way that it was when you started the recording? So if you had a recording in gallery view,
Well, it obviously was the way it was, because since it didn't change, it had to be the way it was.
yeah.
And actually, I haven't tested to see if I'm in gallery view and I started, does it come in speaker view? I know there's a place where you can change things for the cloud recording,
Correct.
but I'm not familiar with this recording.
Yeah, there
Okay.
doesn't. You don't have the same options for local. I'm just trying to think though. There is, like in webinar, for example, when you do get to decide whether the attendees see what the host sees or the attendee follows host view. I'm wondering whether when you have a cloud recording running, whether there's a similar option.
You can pin the host can force their view on participants in a meeting. Yes. I don't know if that would change anything. I haven't tried that.
Yeah.
I can't try it here because we can't mess with it on this. By the way, George, I did what you said. I tried it. It had no audio, and that's, I think, because I started recording before you finished talking. And so I didn't change my microphone. So I've done it again. I've changed my microphone. Now I think I'll just mute myself and go test it out. I don't have to leave the meeting to make that happen.
And it may, if you're going to do a local record like that though, and you're going to capture the audio, you may find that you won't get your own audio because that's not being output through your
I'll find out in a
local sound
moment.
device.
So I will be back, guys.
It's just a matter
Zoom
of
recording is mysterious.
it is
It's easy on that PC because I use that Xbox Record, which is a sidebar function on Windows. It's very easy to capture whatever you've got that's going out.
How do you handle the if you're doing a local record on a meeting on the machine that you're also hosting from? How do you avoid getting all your interface stuff in the recording?
You cannot have a local recording and be the host and have a cloud recording. I don't believe that you can start both. Anyone can do a local recording if they have permission, and then any host or co-host can initiate the cloud recording, which goes to the host, but I don't think the host can do both.
You're right, Lois.
Okay, so I did that. Thank you, that Shift Command 5, and yes, it did record everything, including my voice. It wasn't very good quality, but it's there. Still doesn't answer the question of why can't you have a Zoom recording that has both?
So there's a whole documentation page on Zoom recordings and
I
layouts.
will just go to Zoom.
But I don't think that really clarifies it because the options are there's so many variations in these options between local and between cloud and stuff like that. There is documentation. I just don't believe an absolute answer is in there. But
Thank you for the link, Joe.
You bet.
hey, George, you had your hand up.
Yeah, I was just going to say that I do a lot of things in webinars simply because I can get multiple recordings there now. You can get, I think, 4 or 5 different recordings, including one recording that's nothing but screen share. And it tends to be at a really nice high res because a lot of the stuff I end up doing gets into post and gets put behind a paywall for a couple of clients, right? So they want a nice clean version. And that was that's an addition from maybe 2 months ago. So, and if you don't have a really big group and you've got the webinar license, you can bring everybody on stage, right? You don't have to leave them in the bleachers. So.
What's the what differences are you seeing then in the webinar recording settings? Because I wasn't aware there's any difference in this on the cloud recording.
Well, the cloud recording now has multiples, right? So you got the gallery view, speaker view, screen share, and they're separate files.
But I didn't think that was unique to webinar.
Unless I haven't looked in the last week and a half. I was just actually looking into the settings right now. Where is it?
And that also assumes that you are a video editor, and after the fact, you're going to be able to cut and paste and, do your manipulation. Because if you've got 4 different files with 4 different views, that's not one thing that's, done.
It's,
Hello, Josh. Hello, Kirsten.
it's an expression of paranoia. If somebody says, "Would you like me to record 9 copies of this?" I go, "Yeah, why not?"
I know there's some folks in the wider group there that they're doing a big record project. They'll have 2 producers dialed in to the meeting and doing in separate locations, just taking up ISO records just as a backup, but that's different workflow, obviously.
What's ISO, Rupert?
ISO is a shorthand terminology for isolated recording.
Okay. Yeah, when I do my radio show, there's an option in Zoom that you can say record every individual audio separately.
Right.
And I do that in case one person's mic is too low, but that's because I edit the radio shows and I know how to merge tracks and stuff.
Right. Yeah.
Hey, Kirsten. Your hands up?
Hey, yes.
Hey.
So I was on YouTube and came back in here. So maybe I can contribute something. You can't hear me? Okay, I haven't
Very low.
solved my audio problem yet.
Thank you.
I need to get into after hours. Okay, can you hear me okay now?
Yes.
It's better? Okay. So if I understood your question right, you are on a Zoom Pro account, as I am probably, and you just have your machine and you just want to record what you see as a host. What I didn't get from the question was, are you pinning or are you spotlighting? Because that's a difference. So usually if I do the spotlight or we are hosting together and we do the spotlight, then we have the spotlighted version on the recording, and if nothing is spotlighted, we have gallery view.
So
and there are also 2 areas where you can change settings, one in your Zoom account profile and one when you are now on Zoom on the recording settings, there is also different things to choose.
So the original question was, I have had recordings where it was all speaker view. I have recordings where it's all gallery view. Even though I'm switching back and forth, it doesn't switch on the recording. And so do you know where that setting could be?
What
you
are you
spotlighting
switching
or
back
pinning?
and forth? Are you spotlighting or are you pinning?
Neither. I'm just switching between speaker view and gallery view. On my machine, I'm switching from seeing everyone to just seeing one person. And the recording does not reflect that.
Yeah, I would like to know, just as a test, whether the view of the recording is defined by the view you had when you started the recording. Just
if 2 of you would like to come with me to my Zoom space, I will record us and attempt to switch and then come back and report. But we can't do it here.
right.
Yeah, right.
I'm happy to do it.
Okay. I will put my Zoom link in my name. Well, no, that goes out to the stream, doesn't it? The chat doesn't go to the stream, does it?
The Zoom chat does not, no.
No.
Okay, I will put my It's my, the same as my phone number.
But the question is whether the recording follows the view dynamically of the local recorder. That's the question.
That's
That's
what
the
I
question.
want it to do, and I haven't been able to get it to do that. It sticks on one way or the other way. It doesn't switch when I switch.
So, and there is a you can start and stop recordings. I wonder if you push the button, if it locks to whatever setting you happen to be on at the time.
That's my thought.
You can say again? I didn't understand that.
You can set a meeting to automatically record, but that's
Oh,
for
okay.
a cloud recording.
Yeah,
But
I
for
didn't.
someone to locally record, it requires the individual that is recording, and it requires them to start the recording,
Yes.
given that they have permission to do so.
That's
And
what I've
so
done.
when you push the button, I guess the theory is that whatever, if you're on speaker view or on gallery view, does that lock to it and not change once you push the record button? That's the question, right?
I recall making recordings where it did what I did, but in the last 3 weeks, I haven't been able to replicate that, and that's why I'm here. So I've put my username and password in the chat, and I'm going to go out and be in that meeting for you. And if anybody wants to come and join me, I would love to experiment there.
Yeah, I
Thank
can help you out with that, Lois. One question before you leave.
Yeah.
Do you remember if that in times past you were doing a local recording? Also,
I've always been doing local recording. That's
always
all.
local recording.
Yeah.
Okay, just checking.
I'm doing the backup. The host has done I just start the local recording. The host does the cloud recording. And that way, if one of us fails, we're still okay. Yeah.
Gotcha.
Okay. I'll be back. Thank you.
Okie doke.
Right back.
So, George, I pulled up the. Did George jump too? He jumped. This is the amount of controls that you have on the back end for cloud recording, and this is where you can. We were just talking, Josh, whether there's a difference between the recording options, the cloud recording options for webinar versus meeting. And I didn't think there was a difference, but George seemed to think there was. So I just logged in here to see if there are, or whether there's been
Yeah,
new changes.
that's the first I've heard of it.
That's a lot of checkbox.
Yeah, I was just testing some things. I'd say recordings is like one of the top 3 things people have problems or the most questions about in Zoom in the wider community. There's a lot of options out there, a lot of variations, and since Lois said it was a new problem that she'd noticed in the last little while, I was going to also check the release notes, see if there's been any changes to the client side for the recording behavior or the recording features. Like, hey Serge, how you doing?
I'm good. I just jump in. The last few weeks, I was unable to jump into the kitchen.
So no, I'm not seeing anything in the release notes recently. Last change was to do with recordings, was September 23rd, and that was unique file names.
In case anybody had any doubt about this, the Zoom chat bot is not helpful at all. Just in case you had any doubts.
You mean the support chat?
Yeah, the chat bot, the robot who's talking back to me, not very helpful.
Do you find any of these chatbot to be useful?
Not the bots necessarily, but once you can get through to a person on chat, they can be pretty helpful.
Yeah.
So
That's it. That I agree.
so if you can jump through the bot to get to a person, it can be a necessary step. But
I am not seeing me.
Sorry, I'm in 2 meetings at the moment, so I'm a bit distracted.
So if I may come back to the Zoom settings in the account, what I've checked and what you showed just now, Rupert, it looks like they only affect the cloud recording. I couldn't find any settings for the local recordings.
there's
in
not
there.
much. There's not much. There isn't much on the web settings for local recording, other than really just being able to allow it. That's really the only settings you see on there for anything to do with local recording.
Yeah, and then there are in-meeting, how is it called in English, video settings for the recording. And there you can just choose to have a separate audio recording for each participant or things like that.
Yes.
But it doesn't seem that there is anything to choose about the view.
Right. So it must be making that decision from somewhere. So it seems it might be where you know your view at the time you start the recording. Has anybody got a preference of either local recording or cloud recording, either way, or pros and cons either way?
It depends.
It depends. Yeah. The one reason I think I see people doing local recordings, the most compelling reason to do local recordings is the isolated audio. That's seems to be the one major difference. Or storage space somewhere. Sometimes I guess in cloud recordings can be a problem. It's amazing though how many questions there are out there about recordings. People often rely on recordings as their record of there being, a meeting is like a actual sort of their records of either the meeting took place or what happened, and when that goes wrong or it's not, they lose the file or they can't find it, that can pose a serious problem for some folks based on how they're using it. It's just one of those things. The other difference, I guess, in doing recording, well, the one advantage to the folks who do the screen captures instead of the records in Zoom is that if you have a 1080 account, you're going to get the full 1080 if you screen capture it. I don't think the local recording or the cloud recording do 1080. I think they're both limited to 720. Does anybody know if that's the case? Actually, now wondering whether the local recording. No, the local recording wouldn't get 1080. Might do. Might do.
Gotta run, guys. Take it easy.
All right. Thanks, Henry.
See ya, Henry.
Kristen, it sounded like you'd done some work with recordings. How do you use it in your workflow?
Well, not anything sophisticated. We usually do the cloud recording, and then afterwards we do a little bit of cutting, because most of the things when we are hosting, we are not live streaming at the moment. So we do some yeah, and we just share it with the participants. It's not out there.
Right.
So
Do you find it to be reliable, or you have any problems with it?
usually it works.
Usually, yeah.
We are different hosts, so it's not always the same person,
Right.
but usually it works. Yeah.
I know some people get into some trouble sometimes where they're not the original host. The host was passed to them, and then they started a recording. And where did the recording go? Whose account was it under? You know, all that stuff. And it's not always a
Yes,
simple.
that's why I prefer to use my own account
Right.
if I'm hosting.
Right. What have you been doing? Any other interesting work in Zoom recently, or had any other interesting any problems you want to discuss or challenges you've come up against?
One thing I haven't gotten enough time. I'm not sure how much time is left on my trial count for Zoom events, but the conferences is something I haven't really gotten into. How about you, Rupert?
I haven't had any hands-on with it yet on the conferences side. The biggest thing I really want to understand about conferences is the licensing. I've heard it explained 3 different times, 3 different ways, you know, about what the capacities are and simultaneous this and how many, you know, attendees you can have in your overall event versus your all that stuff.
So
you know.
let me so this is probably one of the explanations you received. I'm thinking this is the one that Sam from Alpha Sours spoke about. And what I got out of it is that as far as licensing, you're basically licensing the lobby in a Zoom event. So if you get a Zoom Events 1000 account, my understanding was that the Zoom Events 1000 means that you can have 1,000 people in the lobby. Now, are you going to be able to put 2 meetings with, you know, say you have 2 1,000 webinar licenses? Can you put 2 1,000 concurrent meetings together? I would say no. I would say that at the most, everyone can ditch the one meeting for 1,000 and show up in the other, and you're just fine. But if since you can't enter more than 1,000 people in your meeting, it's not really a problem of having too many. Now, of course, if you've got 500, a 500 and a 500, then I believe another limitation would be, let's say everyone decided that they wanted to be in one, the most interesting meeting, and after 500 participants, yeah, you can mull around the lobby, and I guess you could preview from the lobby, but I don't think you can enter after the 500th person has entered that lobby, even though you have a Zoom 1000 and people can still mingle around in Expo or just look at the, you know, can just be in the lobby. Otherwise, that's my understanding of it. I don't know if that's correct or not, but that's.
So I like your lobby analogy, but does that mean that that's the capacity of the lobby at any one time, or that's the amount, or is it really in fact ticket sales, as it were?
So your question is, can you overbook?
Yeah.
Provided that not all the people show up, like,
right.
like on airplanes.
Right.
I would say that when you start selling tickets, your number starts to dwindle at that point. You can see it. In fact, if you start creating tickets on it, every ticket you create is one less ticket that's available, which includes your speakers. It includes, I guess one thing they changed though, is that you can have multiple roles now. Before it was for the whole event. And I don't know if it's just for conferences, but Sam basically mentioned, he's like, no one's going to ever do summits anymore now that there are conferences. because you can actually, it was kind of dumb before. Like you would have a panelist, right? Panelist, but like they're just a panelist, but like panelist for what? Well, who knows? So now it seems like each individual session gets their own you can assign speaker, well, primary speaker, other speakers, panelists for webinars.
Because
Yeah.
they all need tickets, I think, because like I only began to appreciate recently that in webinar, just plain old webinar, if you have webinar, let's say 1000, that's 1000 attendees. You can have 100 or whatever. There's a separate limit for panelists, and that's a different number. The webinar 1000, like the 1000, that's attendees.
So where did you see this
Mm.
at, where you could have a separate number of panelists?
Well, it's not. It's. I read it in the documentation. Like that's
Didn't we see in the demo when he added I think we saw the demo here, we added a panelist, it took the number of available tickets down by one.
right for Zoom events. That's I believe the case is that you're
Zoom event.
you're right. You're any person in the entire thing consumes a ticket. I was just saying that I only learned recently in a plain old webinar that seems not to be the case for the
Cool.
the license size, like webinar 1000.
interesting.
That's 1000 attendees.
We
your
know the
panelists.
interesting thing. Oh,
separate.
sorry.
Go ahead.
So the interesting thing about inviting someone as a panelist in a webinar is that they can't be demoted. So like, well, we have office hours every day, right? People can ask to be promoted to a panelist, and they come up and they can be on the show if they're on the panel, or they can turn their camera off and hide. Either way, but and you can also demote them. So they want to just go back and watch as an attendee, they can. But if you invite someone as a panelist, they are panelists, and panelists cannot. Their pumpkin doesn't turn into a chariot, or
Could-
the other way around.
Interesting.
Josh, could you, if you had your, I don't know how webinars work, if you had your webinar set up so that people could re-enter after they've been removed, could you remove them as a panelist and have them re-enter and they'd be as a regular person? Or would they re-enter as a panelist again?
That's a good question. Go ahead, Rupert.
When you there's two ways somebody can become a panelist in a webinar. You can pre-invite them as a panelist, and they get sent a very specific URL to join the webinar, which predetermines them as a panelist.
So they'd come in again as a panelist if they use
Yeah.
the same link.
Right, exactly. So if you'd removed them as a panelist, they probably wouldn't, i.e. blocked them, they
Yeah.
probably wouldn't be able to join at all again using that
Right.
link. But if the other way somebody can become a panelist is to join as an attendee, and then through whatever mechanism the host chooses to promote them, I guess then if you remove them,
But then you
maybe
can demote them.
you can demote them.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I think what Josh is saying is if you cannot demote somebody who has been pre-defined as a panelist if they've joined with their panelist link.
That makes sense.
That brings up another interesting quandary. So the interesting thing between Zoom events and regular webinars is and on Zoom is how locked down everything is. So and Rupert, you're more familiar with this than I am, but you were explaining it earlier about just what it means. So in order to lock down the platforms where you're selling tickets, so whenever Zoom sells tickets, either in on Zoom or Zoom events, they've locked it down. Before they put their name on anything that money is exchanging hands, they've made sure that you have to register for an account, and then you have to show up for the event with that same account to get in. And oftentimes, if people, it can cause entry issues because of the security, security convenience, they're equal and opposite. So because it's secure, it ensures that they can only join from the registered identification, so the registered account. Now, the reason why that's not the case currently or in regular webinars, Rupert, you can better explain how you could subvert that if you're not in a Zoom events or on Zoom.
Yeah, well, there's two sides to it. There's two sides to it normally outside of Zoom events, like you say, and on Zoom. Normally in meeting or webinar, there's two sides to all this authentication or registration stuff. There is the registration portion where you are saying that people need to register to attend your meeting or webinar. So they'd go to a registration page, they'd put in their information, and then they would be sent by email a link that is unique to their registration, which they would then click on to join the meeting or webinar. And you can, in addition, also specify in Zoom that for people to join your meeting or webinar, that they need to be authenticated. That means that they need to be logged into a registered Zoom account when they join your meeting or webinar. There is nothing in webinar or Zoom meeting or webinar that says that they have to be logged in with the same account that they registered with. And so that means that quite often that might be a different account. Classic example, or a simple innocent example, is where somebody may have, let's say, a Zoom account that they're logged into during the day for work. Let's say Joe blogs at ABC Corp, and they may have another account that they use for personal purposes, Joe blogs at gmail.com. So they may have registered for a work-related meeting with their work-related email address. They may be clicking on the join link that they've received to their email address, but at the point that they log in, their Zoom client is logged into their Gmail account. At the moment, Zoom doesn't care, so long as they're authenticated in some way to a Zoom account, so Zoom can at least authenticate that they are somewhere, then it will work. So Zoom events and on Zoom ties that back together. But the problem that leaves in meeting and webinar the rest of the time is that somebody who has registered for a meeting and received their registration link and their join link could, in theory, forward that link to anybody, and that person could click on it. And so long as they're authenticated with an account to Zoom, it will join them in generally.
And that is the most strictest current webinar feature, is requiring authorization, right? As opposed to registering just to get the link. So in other words, so for example, so the checkbox that you click for when you're making your webinar, you have a checkbox that says require authorization.
Authentication.
Right? Thank you. Authentication. So require authentication. So if you don't check the box, then you can send someone an email invitation, right? And they can simply, thanks for the link, and they can share the link, and it's an open link, right? But you've registered in the sense that, hey, what's your name? What's your, information? And they're like, hey, thanks for giving us your name and information. Here's the link, right?
But-
Whereas if you hit the authorize authentication, I'm going to keep messing that up. So if you hit the authentication button when you're creating your webinar, that means that you are required to have signed into an account, either free or paid, and join via the authenticated account, or you have to
Yes.
join via
Yeah.
a authenticated account.
You have to join via a client that is logged in to a Zoom account.
But I believe that for each registration, that link only works once. So if somebody else uses that link and gets into the meeting before I do, and I come to get in, either they knock me out or I can't get in or something. Isn't that true?
That is actually a setting. You can define that. By default, you are allowed to join via multiple clients. You can disable that, but by default, no, that link can be shared and you can have 100 Loises join your meeting.
Really?
And Rupert, do you know offhand what that setting is called?
Yeah, it's when you have a meeting and you have registration enabled. When you go to edit your registration settings, there's a setting there that says allow users to join from something multiple devices. Let me see. So create new meeting.
I do believe there's a difference between one account signed in that has multiple devices, in other words, a computer, an iPhone, an iPad, versus separate accounts using the same registration. Is that not the case?
Say that again.
So I know that I can sign into a meeting I've registered for, and I can have a computer and an iPhone, both in the same meeting, both signed into my same account. I'm still Lois. But I thought that if I signed in as someone else on a computer, that it didn't work. That's where I was told the problem was.
Okay, so there's a subtle distinction between the client being logged in and the client joining a meeting.
Mm-hmm.
So you can only have one of any device type logged into your Zoom account. So either one computer and one iPhone and one tablet, iPad. And if you try to join a second computer with the same login,
It logs you out.
It logs you out, but it won't disconnect you from the meeting.
That's right. And I will still be the host of the meeting, even though I made that mistake. I did that.
Right.
So to provide a visual aid, this is my Zoom login, and currently the little icon in the top indicates which account is logged in.
Right.
And I believe the subtle difference that Rupert is talking about is that you can get into a meeting. Like I can jump into the meeting, and then I can jump on my phone and then log in to the same account on my phone. And I can get into my phone meeting. But what happens is this little box here at the top will say, oops, someone's logged into your account. And it won't kick you out of the meeting.
But that's only if it's another computer. If you have a computer and a phone, it'll let them both in.
Oh, okay. Is that true?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. You can have multiple devices logged into your same account, but only one of each device type. One computer, one iPhone, one
web,
and maybe one iPad also, I think.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
So
but
iPad is its own thing.
I think so. But like if you
Interesting.
if you tried to log in a second iPhone, it would log your first iPhone out.
So it's like a Noah type of thing then. Never mind.
I see Kirsten's in here twice. Have you got a computer and an iPhone, or a computer and iPad? iPhone.
Ooh,
all right.
Someone's showing off.
Well, it's the test kitchen. We got to test things.
That's right.
So when you're done with this topic, I do have a report to make.
Okay. Well, let's go.
Just one very short piece about something that happened to me with webinars, and I haven't tried it for a while. But despite saying, please don't share your presenter invitation to anybody else, somebody did. And we had 3 people in a session, two of them who had no idea why they would be on camera, and one who was embarrassed that she'd shared her login. But we were able to move them back into the audience and keep them there.
So
But
you
that
could
was
demote them?
Yeah, I was able to demote them.
Ah,
Huh,
That
interesting.
was 3 or 4 months ago, and I haven't had the opportunity to run into the same situation again, but I'm pretty sure the next time I meet with those guys, they'll do it to me again.
hey, if
So
you ever
George-
want to test it, invite me as one of your speakers and I'll share it with Josh. And
Yeah, I was just making a note that maybe this could be something, we could do some registration tests at a very specific time and run through these things, because it really is oddball.
yeah,
So again, just to reiterate, George, so you had someone share a link and they were a panelist. And so whoever they showed the link created the embarrassing situation of the usurpers giving the panelist ID. And did they came in as the ID of the stolen registration?
Yes, they came, we had 3 people with the same name on the panel. And the panelists were invited by upload. There was no panelist registration. It was just, give me a list, I'll upload them, just for security issues. I don't want anybody to have this. And it happened at the beginning of a live meeting. Financial services, there's a lawyer there monitoring the meeting. You know, it's like, why are there 3 people here with the same names? So I think I just kicked them off. If I remember saying, I don't know who you are. One of them identified herself, changed her name. The other didn't, and we just booted her. But I did demote one.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, George.
No, I did demote. I'm positive I demoted one, and I kicked the one that didn't give me a right name.
So she must have shared more than just the registration link. She must have shared credentials if they came in, logged in to that client.
Doesn't
Right.
have to be credentials though, because there's no credentials. It's just the link. It's
So the
not going
link-
to check her credentials.
So if Rupert, if you logged in, registered for an event and shared with me, and I was logged in as Josh, but joined the meeting that you shared with me, I'd come in as Josh though, right? If I'm logged in, or is it like a web thing? Did
If
I understand that correctly?
I mean, like I have some join links for some stuff I attend, and I can click those links from any account that I'm, wherever I am. All I need is that
Mhm.
link, and it'll log me in as me.
As you, right, which it'll log you in however you're signed in on the client that
Right.
is dominant at the time that you click the link. You know, whatever the default sign in. So the fact that they came in as the stolen identities, I'm wondering, like, did they like give them their whole Zoom credentials and just click the calendar link and come in, or?
No, what they said to me was that they'd shared, the person who did it had simply shared the panelist email with 2 other people, because they said
Gotcha.
they hadn't gotten their notice. Well, the notifications, like, my rule of thumb is notify you instantly and then send you an hour before, nothing else, because you'll lose it. Right? I mean, I've been down this path so many times. And she said, oh, I thought they didn't have their thing, so I sent them mine. And of course, had they come in when we had the green room running, I would have spotted it right away, but they were both late. So they came in the middle of the session. It was really beautiful. You can't tell that from the edit.
Nice.
So this is the setting that I was talking about. This is on your registration settings, and I don't know whether this carries over to pre-invited panelists or not, but it's here. Allow attendees to join from multiple devices. That, I believe, means that once they've used up their join link, that if somebody else tried to join with that link, well, actually, I'm not sure what then would happen, whether the second connection would be denied or would be connected and the first one would drop.
I believe that they wouldn't kick anybody out because of that. It could be a test though, but it's interesting. I think the key word there is devices.
Mhm. Now that not accounts, but devices. When you get a report after you've done a meeting that has registration or a webinar that has registration, and you get a report, is your report going to say these people registered, or is it going to say these people attended?
So the registration report, which you only get if you have registration enabled,
Right?
will show you who registered. And I didn't realize this until recently, but it will show you of those, who registered, who attended.
Mhm.
But I believe it does that based on the utilization of the join links.
Okay.
I think that is new, Rupert, for meetings, but it's been the case for webinars for quite a long time. There's a good detailed webinars report. That's one of the reasons I push people to use webinars as much as they can, because the reporting is way more in depth.
Right. Yeah, that's true. There's this whole special webinar report. At least one, maybe more. So, Lois, how do you get on with your testing?
So thank you for the gentleman who came and joined me in my meeting and let me play with their pictures. And I did recording starting in gallery view, switched to speaker view, started in speaker view, switched to VAC gallery view, tried one where I pinned somebody, tried another one where I spotlighted somebody. So I had all these little things. Guess what? They all worked. It started recording and it switched back and forth. It's like, what? The only thing that did not get recorded, which I believe would have gotten recorded with that Mac something 5, the only thing that did not get recorded is the thumbnails. So when it was in speaker view and I'm looking at my screen, I see speaker view, and then at the top I see the pictures of the other people. Or I can move that to the side or whatever. No, at the top. If I switch to full screen, it's along the side. I can adjust it. I can make it so that it's just me. I can make it bigger so it's taken up this much of the screen with them spotlighted or pinned. None of that showed up on the recording at all.
Yeah, I've never seen that in a recording. The film strip, I've never seen that in a recording. So I don't think that would be part of it.
It's a wonderful thing to know about if you're in an exercise class. I talk about this all the time, because you've got the teacher and then you can have yourself and you can just be you and then make it big. So it's like a quarter of the screen up there and you can see if your position looks like her position. So it's a very useful tool. It just doesn't get recorded.
One of the things you were concerned about was your voice being able to record. And I believe you were
Yes.
able to record your voice on all of those examples. Am I right?
On the first time I tried the Mac 5, I hadn't specified I wanted to use my fancy microphone. And so that one didn't. And then I tried it again and I did specify the microphone and it worked perfectly. It wasn't high quality, but it was sufficient. The Zoom recordings all were perfectly fine, and everybody's voice, mine included, was perfectly fine. So I don't think I have anything more to test, but I'm really glad George told me about that Mac thing, because that is going to be so cool. Yes, Kristen.
There is one setting in the as now you can't hear me. Well, I need to find out about my audio problem.
We can hear you.
Okay, so now when you go to the video settings here in the call,
Mhm.
there is for recording, for local recording, there is one thing you can tick, like I have the German version now, so I have to retranslate, so that you can record the video beside of your picture, the one you can move around you just talked about.
For screen sharing.
So there you can have a look, yeah, for the screen share. There you can have a look if you have ticked the box or not, and
Right.
it's then happening on the recording.
But
They're
that's
not
only for screen
both out.
sharing. That's not for Spotlight or Speaker View. It's only screen sharing that shows up.
Yes, you were also talking about the screen sharing. You won't get the thumbnails on the top as you see when you're sharing, but you will get the side by side, and there is a box you can click or unclick.
Right, for screen sharing, correct. And I was not doing screen sharing. I was doing the other. So
Yeah. So terminology, if it's helpful, I believe when you have the many small boxes at the top, we call that a film strip. So film strip recording, and the one box in the corner, I believe in the English settings, it's called a thumbnail video.
If you're doing a screen share with the view that you have, you should have standard view, which is only the shared screen with the film strip at top, and then you have side-by-side speaker and then side-by-side gallery. And the side-by-side gallery is really a film strip that runs vertically that you can scroll up and down.
mhm.
And it should record that way.
And
That'll
if
be a good test, Lois.
yeah, if you have there's a slider between the presentation and the film strip. If you slide that over, your gallery will get bigger and you can see more people. They're very small, but you can see more people.
I like to have side-by-side presenter, and then I can slide it so half of the screen is the presenter and the other half is their presentation, provided they don't do your basic PowerPoint, which looks like the back page of a dictionary. Right.
Right. And that brings up an interesting, and everything you said, George, this is for a single screen or dual screen?
I do both, but yeah, I've been talking about single screen as much as I can because I think that's Lois's environment.
Okay. Interesting. And I hadn't thought about the side by side, but I'm wondering, so another feature of the side by side is that you can actually detach the side by side window and pull it away. And so I was thinking about, we talked about previously the best display to record out of. And an interesting thing with the single window side by side mode is that given it's not going to put a film strip, let's say maybe, I guess, just a regular speaker view. If you wanted to record like an isolated speaker view or maybe even the screen share, but you went to side by side view and then pulled the detached the side by side view, I wonder if that might be a nice screen scraping candidate to not have a film strip view. If you wanted to get just, a recording of just, let's say, speaker view or share screen, would that be a good option?
When you're talking about pulling something away, you're talking about having two monitors, correct?
So not necessarily. So example that would be like your chat or your tab, right? So if you don't touch anything, when you hit the chat button, it'll come up in the side of your window. So it'll squash everyone over and then it'll put the chat window beside it. But I always pop out the chat window. So when I hit the chat button, it just automatically, because I left it that way, it'll just pop out as a side window. And the same thing is true for the side-by-side. The side-by-side you can pop out as well. So the practical sense of recording a full screen on a one-screen device, I'm not sure if you can hide it behind the mode. Maybe not. Or I know you can resize it. So you could make it different sizes, and you can control it there. Or I think even when you pop it out, I think there might even be I'm on a dual screen device here, but I think there actually might be a minimize button, if I'm not mistaken. So you could actually make a full screen and then just dispense with the side by side, and then you wouldn't have to worry about the contaminated film strip view. I'm theorizing.
Josh, I did what you said. I got to chat. I popped it out. It's now here. I can't put it back. If I close it and reopen it, it stays on top of everybody's face. There is no minimize. There's an X.
Yeah, I'll tell you how to do that. So if you look in my screen, there is a button at the bottom right. It says merge to meeting window. That's how you get it back.
I don't have that. I have a place to type a message.
Oh, you know what? That's the participants.
Oh, you're in participants. Okay. Oh, I see. It's
Yeah.
under 3 dots. Okay.
Yeah, it's under the
3
the
dots.
ellipse.
All right.
Mhm.
So somebody want to share screen so I can test that out, please?
Sure.
Okay. Thank you. I am not finding a pop out anywhere.
So were you testing the side-by-side feature?
I have side-by-side gallery, and I don't see any place to make a pop out. Side-by-side speaker, no place for a pop out on that. And standard floats. The strip is floating on top of your screen share, which I assume would not record, since nothing else that's floating ever records. Okay. Aha. All right, so that was full screen. Now outside of full screen, still no pop-out showing up. Where are you finding the thing that says pop-up, Josh?
So I don't have it in front of me.
Oh, okay.
I believe in the view. Did you check the view options? If it has an option for side by side.
Standard
know what? You
side-by-side
might have
speakers,
to,
side-by-side gallery, and full screen, but there's no pop-out.
Okay. It's been a while.
If I make that as
can't,
small as I can, it makes a skinny thing, but it's still there.
It is
Okay, so you can just
in the
wipe
chat.
the share left and right. You're so. Kristen, did you say something?
I thought she's still talking about her chat window. Lois, no?
Now, and I'm talking about the speaker window on a side-by-side view with a share screen. And if I pin someone in gallery, then they become the speaker. So I can change who is there. Okay, Josh, I'm lost.
Unfortunately, I can't illustrate the point. I believe that might only be for a single window device.
This is a single window device.
Right. Yeah, I'm not sure. Is that a Mac or a PC,
Mac.
Lois? It's a Mac. Okay.
Mhm.
I saw it on a Windows device. I don't know if that makes a difference or not. But
I've switched one of my other machines to single window, and I'm going to single monitor, and I'm going to bring it in.
okay. Cool.
Okay, so the share screen's gone now, so, okay. So did anyone ever figure out, Kirsten, why your thing went from this to this? Did they ever figure that out? Because you had it set up so nicely, and then all of a sudden it went like this.
You mean when I first came in here a couple of weeks ago?
No, I mean today. When you came in today and we weren't seeing the clips, we were seeing your background. And then when you started speaking, all of a sudden it jumped.
Yeah, I believe it's because of the 1080p in the.
Yeah.
So when she gets 1080p, because if she's speaking in speaker view, then
Mhm.
Zoom will request 1080p from her, and the 1080p will cause her camera to crop.
What camera do you have, Kristen?
To crop or to not crop?
To uncrop. Or
Okay. So does that mean,
Yeah.
there you go, Kirsten. See, that's what I saw at the beginning. Is that because you have told the camera to crop? Is that why it's happening?
I don't know yet. I'm trying. Okay. So when I first came in here into the Zoom cat, no, it's the second time I came in, but anyway, in October, I started speaking and I had this problem. And then I have a Brio, Rupert, you asked. And then Guy Cochran asked to camera control, and I gave it to him and he could zoom it in. And I was a bit like, but how can I do this? If he can do this somewhere else on the globe, how can I do this? But I'm still playing around. I don't know yet. So
when you just now, you had it two different ways. What were you changing on your end? Were you changing camera settings?
I was changing in the video settings. I was clicking on HD. But if I go on HD now, it might not go back. No. So to be honest, I don't know how I can keep the same I don't know, the same part of the picture.
Frame, yeah.
Yeah, because I'm not usually in 1080p Zoom calls, so only here.
All right. So Josh, do you know how one changes one's camera from 1080p to not 1080p? Is this a specific thing for a camera, or do all our cameras do that?
The behavior that Kristen is experiencing has to do with Zoom only asks for 1080p whenever when a person's speaking. So if someone in the meeting is in speaker view, they'll be requesting 1080p from her camera. And I'm not sure about the particulars about how you start off with a lower version. If you're in low demand, if it crops in, usually it's the other way around for other devices I've used on other platforms. Usually, well, I don't know if this is related, but we've had issues on Adobe Connect, a different platform, and the problem happened that you'd get a speaker, and the speaker would be fine, and then all of a sudden they would crop real close in on their face. And the problem that happened is that the system asked for a resolution so it could display it into the platform, and the resolution wasn't supported by either the computer or the firmware or the camera itself. And so instead of it converting the full size image and then converting the pixels down into a smaller image, what it did instead is it just cropped out the number of pixels that it wanted out of the full screen. That's an experience that I've had, not on Zoom, but on Adobe Connect, where we've had participants, you'd see them, they'd be framed nicely, and all of a sudden, depending on how big the box you made, how many pixels it asked for them, then it would just like zoom real close into their face. Now, I don't know if this is a similar behavior that Zoom is experiencing. It definitely has to do with it requesting. Yeah, it definitely has to do with it requesting different resolutions based on the speaker view. I'm just not sure if the change happens to if you come in just without any changes to your settings, or if you've already cropped in locally, or Kristen, you've not
it-
changed any settings coming in. You just you haven't had any camera adjustment settings. Using it, you'll just see it pop in and out depending on if you're in a
If she-
1080p meeting and in speaker view.
If she turns off her video and turns it back on, can you try that, Kristen? Yeah. And now it comes back on.
If
The way
she
you
hasn't
want it.
spoken yet.
Now,
let her,
if
let her
she
speak.
speaks-
If I start talking, it will change.
You have to
Keep
talk
talking.
a little bit more.
Talk more.
Yeah, you didn't. You
Talk
didn't
more.
switch over yet.
Okay. So it's, yeah.
There you
that's
go.
it.
Okay. So it's a difference between speaking and not speaking for Zoom.
Well, it's a difference
speak-
between
it's the
someone
resolution.
requesting the 1080p video or just wanting a thumbnail. So if she just turns her camera on but never comes to the speaker view, if she never says anything and never comes to speaker view, then Zoom's only asking for a tiny thumbnail image from her. And so for whatever reason, the tiny thumbnail image is cropped in. It's a small set of her picture.
Yeah.
So if Kirsten speaks and then she wants her image to look the way it used to be, all you have to do is turn the video off and back on, and you're good until you're speaking again.
And just to test the theory, Kristen, would you stop your video and start it again and stay muted, and I will pin you to force your resolution up, and we'll see if that does the same thing.
So I start like this, or
Turn off your video.
Now
Turn on your video.
and remain muted. Okay. So
Whoops.
okay.
There you go.
So remain muted.
You could spotlight her.
We're going to try pinning first. I'll try pinning you. Okay, now I've pinned you, and
There it goes.
boom. See, the thing too is the person pinning has to have a large enough screen to request the 1080p. If you pin someone and you just have a tiny box on your window, then it won't request the 1080p.
Like a phone.
Hey, this is Joe. I'd like to suggest another test in this regard. With Kristen, if you go down to your video settings, there's a box that says original ratio. What is that? Is that clicked or not clicked? You know what I'm saying? What I'm talking about when I say the video settings?
Next
Yeah.
to where you had the HD setting, Kristen. there should
Yeah,
be a
right
little-
next to
not
the.
clicked.
Mm-hmm.
Next to the stop video, there's a little upward pointing thing. And in that pop-up menu, it says video settings. Do you see that? Yeah.
Yes, I know.
Yeah.
I just clicked this box Joe said.
That says original ratio. Let's do that same test with this clicked. So cancel your video, bring it back in. See what you look like. Okay, and you came
That's
back
over.
in.
Okay. So since that's overriding what she first did, so you can now, Kirsten, now you can set up your staging and know what it's going to look like, because it's going to look like that all the time.
Well,
So you can adjust where you're going, right?
before we get too
Potentially,
carried away,
potentially.
I think we got to make sure that she's reset first before we test. This last time it took a longer camera off before she got back into the cropped side. It might not have just reset. So
And-
maybe just try that.
And Kristen, do you have a way to control your camera? You said Guy was able to do it before via Zoom, but do you yourself have a way to locally control your camera with like the webcam settings app or something like that?
Well, I'm trying to get there. I asked the questions on the on a Saturday 2 weeks ago. So now I have got the, how is it called? This app Alex said, webcam settings app.
Mhm.
I think it was even some bugs. I don't know. So I got this one, and but I don't know yet if I have the right settings in there. So I have.
So it should have.
Would you like to share your screen and have people help you with the program?
I can screen share. I don't know.
Should be able to.
I think that,
You should be able to.
yes.
And if you have the Zoom control in the webcam settings app,
That's weird. I can only share the whole desktop now. Okay.
Yeah, they eliminated. FYI, you notice there's only 2 sharing options where there used to be 3, and they've eliminated the advanced share where you could share a portion of your screen again.
No. Really?
Yeah. Yep.
But I use
Then
that
it
At
every
least for the
single
Windows
day.
client. I
No,
know.
it's still here.
I'm not on Windows. I'm a new Mac user, which is still trying to get used to this after decades
Josh,
of Windows.
That's still here. It's the video
Oh wait, no, it
share
is.
that went away.
You know
the
what? It
third-
is.
Tab.
Yeah, you're right. Okay. You know what? It's interesting. I was in another meeting, so I see it now. But I was in another meeting where this was not available.
It might be a setting they were able to turn off.
Maybe.
Maybe. There's so many you can turn on and off, and finding where they are to turn them on and off is crazy.
That is curious that there was a specific setting to
There's
just turn off
that.
that screen sharing option. I have to look and see if it's in the new dashboard.
So it's pretty weird because I can't see you anymore. But can you now see the settings?
We can see,
part?
We can. Yep.
yes.
Okay, so I need to move it again as it's. Okay, so I have this Brio, and don't know. Probably I have to go to advanced settings.
Zoom. There it is.
There
right
you
there.
go. You got a zoom setting. Cool.
Where?
And the third section down under focus, Zoom
This
right
one?
there. Yep.
Yeah.
There you go. That zooms in
Okay.
your
Ooh.
camera.
Okay. So, and I thought I've done this, and I have saved it as this Brio setting, and this setting I thought I used, but it's still changing. So maybe
Well,
we will get there now.
maybe with that keep original
Yeah.
framing thing
Mhm.
click, maybe it'll. So let's try it again.
So first I
Disconnect it.
do
No, you
update
shouldn't-
profile to
Mm.
save it.
Yeah.
No. Well, you
Update profile. Does it?
shouldn't need to do that. It will just.
Well,
It should save.
it doesn't
Why don't you
hurt
try
to
it?
save it.
Yeah, why don't you try killing your
But
camera and coming
autofocus
back and
is
see what
off.
happens?
Say again.
So
What's that?
focus is not on automatic. That should be good, hopefully. Okay, done. Okay, custom screen share with our house.
Well, let's spotlight Kirsten and see what happens.
Well, I would stop and start your video first.
One thing we can do in addition is to come back in the meeting and see.
Okay, so that's how she wants it to look. Now let's see what happens. Rupert has the spotlight control, I
So,
think.
yeah, I can. So I'm first of all going to pin just on my end, and that's pinned now. That's pinned. So we'll just do a spotlight also just to make sure. Spotlight.
Yep, it held. Definitely
And
held.
go
and
ahead
this
and
is-
go ahead and go ahead and speak.
And
Kristen.
this happened why? Because I changed the setting in Zoom, or because I did both?
Well, I
Both.
wonder.
I think it was the Brio control thing that probably
I mean,
a
we can
combination.
test the theory, uncheck that box in Zoom and see what happens.
Yep,
Right.
that's what you were here for. So that would be Kirsten have to do that one though.
Yep.
Okay, I unchecked the box.
and then turn your video off.
Yeah, I already did this. I can do
Yeah.
it again.
Yep, because you changed the setting. And it takes a little while. And it looks good. Now let's see. I will pin you and see if it makes you bigger. Because I have a big screen. Nothing
Right.
changed on my side.
Yeah, I already have a pin here. Looks good.
Now, Kristen, did you come into the meeting with the profile set to zoom in on your frame?
Which setting do you mean?
When you first joined the test kitchen today, did you already have the settings to zoom into your video like you have it now?
It's a good question. I'm not sure. I'm not sure if these settings automatically get used or if I have to do something when I join a Zoom meeting.
Was the
How
last
about
time that you're
Leaving and coming back.
go ahead, Lewis.
How about leaving and coming back and we'll see what happens.
I'm wondering if you didn't have the settings app running maybe when you came in, so it couldn't adjust your video, perhaps.
Or was the last time that your settings were adjusted? Could that have been the last time that Guy was using your camera control through Zoom?
Well, then I didn't have the app yet. That was later.
Mm.
And if I join other meetings, I don't have the problem because we don't have 1080p like you're running here with the Zoom room or whatever you're using here.
Right.
So do you want to
right.
test going and coming and seeing if this, because this looks good now, and you want to test it?
Can try.
So I will report to you all that for the first time ever, I lost an iPhone. And so in the last day and a half, I've been going through the process of replacing a lost iPhone. I really strongly encourage everyone to back up your iPhone.
Let's have a moment of silence for Lois's iPhone.
Hello, Kirsten. Oh, now that's interesting. I bet, I will bet you dollars to donuts that when you pin her, it's going to jump back to the last way we saw it when she left. Go ahead. Let's try that.
Okay, coming up, pin to pin now.
There it is. There it is. So it still jumped, but because she had set her thing the way you wanted, the fact that it jumped wasn't as bad.
Hang on, one question. How do I now make sure that these settings you've just seen in screen share are really used when I'm joining this call? Do I have to
Go
do
to
something?
go to
or
the
is
setting.
this
Go to the
automatic?
settings and see what they look like. Go and look at them.
Are you referring to the camera settings or into the Zoom settings?
Either
that we
way.
were looking at?
Well, the settings on the webcam settings panel I just showed via screen share. Is there anything I have to do when I join a Zoom call like this that they get used, that they are?
Shouldn't be. You should
Shouldn't.
only need to open that app when you need to adjust them. Like,
Well, the app is still open.
She still has the same problem, but since you got the way you wanted to, eventually the fact that it's coming down and going up, it's not going out as far, but you still have the same jump.
I wonder, Kristen, that application to control your webcam, you have the ability to save more than one profile in the settings. I wonder if you made two settings, doesn't really matter what the second profile is. You could change, something small or just leave it the same, just to have two settings so that when you switch to the other settings, I wonder if it might reinforce the settings that you should have. I agree with Rupert that you shouldn't have to do that. But I wonder if just the act of changing profiles might, if you jump out, then you don't want to show that much of your camera. I wonder if it's running and it's open, but it's still not working. I wonder if switching profiles might force through those settings back to the way it was adjusted. Did you want to try that? So
Yes.
inside the app, there's a save button at the bottom, and the save button says save a new profile, and you can give it a different name, like profile 2, and that way you'll have more than one profile to select from, and that way you can switch back and forth between the profiles. I wonder if just switching back and forth, even to something that has pretty much the same settings, I wonder if that might force it to take the settings. Because it seemed like once you adjusted it in here, it was pretty stable, at least for a while. Yeah, so this is Brio 1080. That's the setting that you have, and it has load at start. Is that load at start need to be highlighted?
That's why I'm starting screen share, because I wanted to ask you if I have to do something with this load at start thing.
Okay.
So you do have
But
two.
now it's,
You have two
So-
in there because you had it when you went to that thing, there were two things there. So
yes,
you have that
because
one?
I just did was what Josh
She just created it.
asked me
Yeah.
to do. Yeah.
Good.
So this was
So-
the old one, and I just copied the same settings. I didn't change anything.
Good.
Okay.
But
Yeah,
did,
and
did I
it's gray
enable
now.
or disable load at start now?
Right. So you see how there's a star next to Brio 1080?
Yeah.
So that means it's the profile that will load at start. And then if you wanted to change it to the other profile, then go to the other profile. So if you want to see, go ahead and hit the Brio 1080
At the
down at the
bottom.
blue at the bottom there.
Yeah.
Go ahead and select the other one. And now you see you have the option to load at start. Go ahead and select that.
Yeah, I did have load at start activated because I had this little star earlier
Okay.
on.
Gotcha.
One of them will always have the star, no matter how many you have. Because when you start up, you can only load one profile.
Okay. So the only reason I had you create a second one is just so you could switch to one, because there's really no button to like refresh or to, send settings. But I'm thinking just the fact that you've got something to switch to, maybe you can
So-
fix it by just switching over.
How does this sound for Kirsten's situation? Kirsten, would you turn off your video again and turn it back on so we see what it's going to look like when you're not spotlighted or talking?
Yeah, and it seems like there's like a minimum threshold off
Okay.
period before it resets.
Okay, now, without doing anything and no one else doing anything, you're in close. And as soon as you get required for the 1080p, then it should shift. I'm wondering if you, Kirsten, pin yourself on your monitor. I don't know how big a screen you have, but maybe you have a big enough screen to force that 1080p shift yourself. Can you try that?
I'm pinning myself, but nothing changes.
Okay. I will try pinning you and see if anything changes. No. Okay, so this is the look that you have in this meeting. But it isn't the look that you came in with when you joined the meeting. It was cropped closer when you joined. Rupert, do you know if I am on my computer at home, I have a big screen, and if I pin myself, does that force the 1080p because it's local? It shouldn't
Right.
do anything, should it?
Yeah, I've never known it to bump you up.
Okay.
That's just local.
So if Kirsten set things up so that her 1080p image is the one she wanted to have on this program and on the office hours, then if she came in and it was too close, she could just get a buddy to pin her and make it be normal. And then it would be that way for the next 3 hours.
Yeah, potentially.
Maybe,
I mean,
but I don't believe this is the solution because
It's
I'm
not
not
the
the
solution.
only one using
no,
Brio, I think, and there are even panelists, I think, who are on Brios, so there should be.
But there's only 2 people I've ever seen this happen to here or on office hours.
yeah, this problem does come up occasionally, and I haven't seen yet what the set of circumstances is that causes it, or really yet what the cast iron solution is. But it doesn't. There's plenty of people using Brios on Macs, straight into Zoom, and this just seems to come up occasionally. I don't know why.
But at least you're here, Kirsten. And this is
Michael Drosty on the panel had the same issue.
Could it be firmware?
That's a thought.
what's firmware?
Good question. I even don't know which firmware I'm running on the Logitech. How can I see this?
So
It's
there's
firmware on the camera or firmware
Yeah.
on the computer?
on the I don't know whether that's the cause, but there are occasional firmware updates to the Brio, and
Mhm.
I've never really sort of seen exactly what they fixed, but it
There
may be
you
something.
are. How did you do that?
I opened the Logitech Brio, whatever
Okay.
panel, where I can do
Switched.
less than in the webcam settings thing. So
And then
because
if-
I wanted to see if I can see my firmware in there. Yes.
I have to go now because I've got that exercise thing that I show recordings for every Friday. So it's been wonderful chatting with you all. And thank you so much for your help. And good luck, Kirsten. I hope I will see you again on one of these things. So bye-bye, everybody.
Thanks, Lois. Thank you.
We'll see you, Lois.
So I'm trying to see what the latest firmware.
So I
the-
have 0x505B is the firmware. Oh no, there are different versions. 2.0.46 is the firmware version. And the other one was firmware CRC. I don't know the difference.
Let me see what version. Can't see can't find the downloader now.
Are there 2 different SKUs of Brio?
At
I'm
least,
seeing
probably.
one. Yeah, I see. Or wait a minute.
Okay, downloads. So the latest firmware version was in July, 2.0.56.
I have a software version of 2.206. I'll put the link in the chat.
And the Mac.
Oh, sorry, that's for Windows.
Yeah, firmware version 2.0.56. What was your firmware version, Kristen?
2.0.46.
Okay, so I will put this link in the chat also. And if that page loads the Windows downloads, it's just a drop down at the top to change it to Mac.
So I joined the little test Zoom meeting that we tested the record options. I joined it in my sandbox. And when I went to save the recording, guess what problem I had?
Permissions?
It didn't know where to save the recording.
Hmm.
It was running out of a sandbox. So it went kapoof. That's good to know. I'm thinking there's still some things I don't know about how to bring the right elements into the sandbox to be able to, utilize it. And writing to hard drive space was not something that was prepared to grant to me. It did the whole encoding, the post processing thing, and then it popped up and was like, "Where do you want us to save this?" And so I told it, and then it's like, "Okay, I'll try," and then it didn't. I was like, "How come I can't find that recording?" I'm gonna have to take your guys' word for it because I didn't see it.
Kristen, were you able to get that link? Firmware?
Yes, I
Do you-
downloaded and I'm trying to update. Now my window is gone somewhere behind.
And Rupert, if you don't mind, can I have record privileges?
Can give you co-host. Will that work?
I suppose so.
I don't think you'll be able to local record though, because there's already a
Hmm.
cloud recording in progress.
I see. So is the way that works, if I went into a breakout room, I could then have the option to local record in the breakout room?
Don't know. Did that do the update, Kristen? So this is, and you've stopped and started your video since then. So shall I try pinning? Oh. Was that was you? I didn't do anything, right?
Wasn't really me. I
Oh,
was
somebody.
trying to.
Kristen, you need a bigger poster.
That's what Guy said already. But I have different plans, but not the budget to get there yet.
You know that thing that they do with photographs? They put the little blurry parts when the photo is not big enough to fill the frame. Just put little blue. Just take some crayon there, expand it out.
Okay, so I have updated the firmware. I'm in the webcam settings panel. Hang on. I'm in the webcam settings panel and I'm updating the profile with this shot now. And I switch off my
And I have you pinned full screen.
To talk, perhaps, that it can change. It's weird.
I have you pinned as well in a large box.
Want to test that one more time?
And I pin you. Whoops.
And history continues.
Now, right now, are you all the way zoomed out or are you just wider than you were before?
Good question. I'm not sure if this is the same zoom out as I just tried to get into my
It looks like you're a little bit
setting.
zoomed. You're not as zoomed out as you were before because I could see all of your clips before.
I
Sorry.
wonder whether the position of the zoom slider in webcam settings is noticeably different. You know, between the change. Do you know what I mean? Is the slider is the setting in the camera actually changing?
You mean if the slider in the
Yeah, if you looked
setting
at-
is changing when
Yeah.
the picture changes?
Yeah, if you looked at webcam settings like before and after, would the slider be in a different position?
I'm not sure. Probably I need to try again.
And
It's the same as before now. It didn't zoom in. Does it get bigger now again?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Where did
I
we
can't-
leave the original ratio checkbox that we were playing with before?
In Zoom,
Yeah. Did you,
it's switched off.
I guess it'd be good to try switching it back on and seeing. If I'm being honest, I've kind of lost track of which tests we've done. You guys are keeping track, right?
absolutely.
Okay, good.
So pinned.
Sorry, I've had her pinned the whole time. That's probably been this.
Yeah, so that will demand.
I mean,
Okay.
if she's gonna come into it, might as well. Oh, here I've removed
Okay.
pin.
Pinned removed. It's safe to come back in now.
Back down,
Oh,
Josh.
That's 4:3, isn't it? That's 4:3.
But
Yeah,
I
you're-
now have in Zoom the setting switched on the.
I go by how many clips I can see. That was 0 clips. Now she's at 1 clip. Before, for the full wide, you can see much more clips. I didn't do anything this time. Okay, now, and just make sure that you don't say anything for the first. Well, you're at 1 clip now. So,
Okay, pinning. pinned.
You know what? Even though I didn't pin her to my screen, no one else had spoken since she went out. So whenever she came back, she was automatically pinned, or she was already in speaker view for
Mm.
me. So I don't know if that makes a difference or not.
I don't know if it makes a difference if I start talking now, but it's still same, stays the same.
You're at one clip.
You like the clips?
Well, they're good.
It's
They're
a good
measurement.
reference.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, the most ancient of measuring systems started just the same way. You know, we had horsepower. Guess where that came from? Yeah. Okay, I made the box small. Hmm.
So I don't know if something changes. I have in Zoom in the settings, I have checked the box now before turning back on, but it doesn't seem to affect anything.
Well, here's another fix for you. Just bring an iPad into every meeting with you. That'll take care of the 1080p.
I have done that
How do you
before,
mean?
like with a second machine. I have sometimes bring a second machine into a meeting and keep myself pinned on there. Not that I have this problem specifically, but it keeps my camera at 1080, so I'd never have a jump of it, anything. You know, if I go to, I'm always pushing 1080, always. If you do that,
I
think
always come in
there's-
twice, you mean?
I mean, not it's not the right solution to this problem because this is a separate
Yes.
problem. But I do that sometimes just for other reasons, just to keep my camera at 1080 all the time.
So if I'm
Yeah.
in on my same account with an iPad in the same meeting,
An
and
iPad.
this Brio, which is connected to my MacBook, is staying at 1080p. That's what you are explaining to me?
An iPad won't do 1080. In fact, an iPad might force it down to 720, but a second machine, a second computer.
Well, that was actually the purpose of me suggesting the iPad, because then you won't
I
have the
see.
1080p problem.
No, it'll keep you. I see.
It was
So
one of
the
those
second-
inside
being
jokes.
in the
Yeah.
Zoom call with a second device will keep one of the devices at 1080p.
Well, let me explain. So this is testing that Rupert and I had done internally in After Hours, and what we found is in a 1080p meeting, there's still things that can take your meeting down to 720p, even though you have a 1080p meeting. And one of those things is having an iPad in that. How does it work? So an iPad. So a person's video that's in speaker view, so that's being offered to the iPad. Most of the time, some of the times when we've tested it on a good day, it's still been some inconclusive things, but it's been known to bring it down. And there's a I'll briefly explain my hypothesis as to why that happens. iPad is the only mobile device platform that's unique to Zoom. Android is basically a phone, whether you have an Android phone or whether you have an Android tablet, they're all the same. It's the same app, same development, and 360p is the most you can push to Android. Same thing with an iPhone. iPhone won't change it because 360p is the most you can push to an iPhone. However, iPads have their own separate Zoom app. iPad OS is different than iOS. So iPads can't support 1080p on Zoom, but they can support more than 360p, which is the 720. So Zoom will try to offer 720p to an iPad, And so if your video is being offered to an iPad, Zoom typically only creates one HD option. So your options of HD are 720p if you have that enabled and you have the 720p option, or if you have an account where you enable the 1080p, that's the other HD option. So it typically won't do both. It won't create both versions of a person's video. And so if there's an iPad that's requesting HD, since it can only get 720p, then it'll give it 720p for you, and it'll be 720p for everybody else too for your video. So that's why in the past iPads have been known to break down the video. However, everything I've just said sometimes works and sometimes doesn't. So what's
It's not
ongoing?
logic.
Yeah,
So because I have heard you saying, not in this call, but somewhere in After Hours or wherever, that this one iPad in the call, even if you have 100 people in there, can drop down your quality. And I was a bit like, oh, that's not good. So, but I still don't understand, if I would be in with my iPad now as well, why should it keep my Brio here on 1080? Because that's what you started saying before, or did I get it wrong?
I mean, I
Well-
misunderstood Josh's intention.
right.
Because, like you said, an iPad is more likely to keep you at 720. So
So if you
prevents-
could have
And
the
if
right
my
size,
camera stays at 720, it's not going to change
that's
the focus.
that's the theory. Yeah.
But then I have the problem that my quality of the picture is less good than all the others.
Don't worry about
which
it.
is anyway.
It's fine. It's fine. It's kind of a tongue-in-cheek solution, but to be honest, though, the difference between 720p and 1080 is not as big as the difference between 360p and 720p. You know, I would say if you have like legible text and you're trying to share on your screen without using the screen share, 1080p is nice for that. You know, to share text on your screen at 1080, but you know, yeah.
What you
Okay,
could also
but-
do, which is what I mean, I happen to do, but many other people do too, is not to connect the Brio directly to Zoom and to put it through something like OBS, which is what I do, and that locks everything in place, but also gives you some other options of being able to switch other stuff in if you wanted to. But it gives you complete control over your pipeline.
Once you head down
It's
the OBS
on my
pipeline,
list. I've got OBS, but I am not able to work with it the way I want it to work yet. So it's another project.
yeah, that is true. Which may be the reason why.
Fade to black.
Yeah, or you could go to the side.
Do your lineup.
Yes, I know this from watching. And I know that I could do all these things with OBS without buying all this other stuff.
But it would definitely solve this problem also.
So
Right. Could be next week. OBS test kitchen.
Yeah, good to be a thing. So we're coming up on 2.5 hours. I'm saying we maybe wrap this up unless we've got any other burning issues.
Anything else?
well,
Anyone
thank you
had
for,
Sure.
finding some of these things out. And,
Yeah, we've
Yeah.
definitely tested our kitchen, I'd
Sure.
say.
George sprung into action there. Have you got something for us, George?
No, I'm just taking notes and trying to figure out how to set up another microphone for my wife. Her office is upstairs, similar to mine. So this is the mess and everything gets broken here. And when it works, then she takes it. Yeah. But no, this has been great. Thanks, Rupert. And
Yeah, sure.
Josh, Kristen, excellent. Serge is back there, I think, at the rink anyway. So no, that was really, really useful getting some of those recording issues sorted out. It's really hard to do without without a bunch of people helping, you know, so.
For
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure.
But this is so expensive.
What's that?
This is such an expensive place to be.
Oh, you should visit office hours.
I have.
That's why I have
Really?
bought already this stuff,
If-
and this is only the entry
think this
level,
is
the low
expensive?
level stuff.
Yeah.
Well, I'm digging into old gear that's been around, and you know, I took I put it in the box. I'm using I was using an Electro Voice 635 that I bought probably in 1980, and that was
Nice.
plugged in here, and it was working great. And one of my friends gave me an old Sony TC132 recorder because mine was broken, and I've got cassettes I'm pulling stuff off of. Yeah. And she gave me a brand new 635A that's been used maybe twice. So I have a brand new 40-year-old microphone.
Brand new 40-year-old microphone.
Brand new.
Fantastic. That's
A
where
hammer.
this came from. I've had
Is
this. This was originally purchased with the intention of recording vocals and acoustic guitar. And I was like, wait a minute. I've got a microphone. Might as well plug it in, right?
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. Cool.
All
It's
right.
been great, folks.
All right,
Thank you.
team. Yeah. Well, thanks everyone.
Thanks,
We will,
Rupert, for
yep.
heading things up,
Yep.
taking the horns.
Sure will.
Sure thing. We will. I believe Jeff's going to be back on his regular schedule next week, so we'll have the pleasure of him back in the hot seat.
Nice. Okay.
All right.
See you on the dark
Until
side.
then, we'll catch you next time.
Cheers.
All right.